6 o'clock, October 19th, and I'd like to call the meeting to order. I'd like to do roll call. Commissioners Aaron Asman. Here. Summer Darrell. Here. Jennifer Casaka. Here. Bill Norman.
Here.
Terry Peters. Here. And Mark Stock. Everyone's in attendance. So let's look at did everybody get a chance to review the minute meetings of September 21st, 2020? So I
I
had
make a
one,
motion that we,
I had a small revision.
sorry.
Sorry. So I had a small revision on page 2, and that was that the CEC, I could approve the mission objective goals and strategies outline of the second draft, and the outline included the categories of planning, design and implementation, analysis, collaboration, and evaluation and feedback. And that the draft would include those categories, and that's what we had over there. And then put those back up on it. Okay, so I just made that revision to include that. Now, I need the motion.
Yes, ma'am. I make a motion that we approve last month's minutes with the amendment that Robin has suggested.
I'll second your motion. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
I was gonna say, I second your emotion. I don't know.
Did I also say your motion?
That emotion? No.
Oh, okay. Took me a minute. Okay, thank you. So I think, we'll start with general business and. Oh, pardon? Citizen comments. Thank you, Mark. I didn't see anybody out there, so doesn't look like there are any citizen comments. You want one? Anybody online?
Tom Solberg.
Oh, Tom Solberg is. Hi, Tom.
Hi there. No comments, thanks.
Thank you. Next item, general business. So I know that David brought up, this was at the last meeting, about looking at and exploring a different meeting time with CEC meetings. And I think that there's a couple of different options. David, I believe that you talked about, one of them was the 4 PM start time.
Is that for the group of?
I can't think of them. Okay, okay. Is a 5 o'clock start time possible?
From a city resource standpoint, is that what we're trying to figure out first?
I believe so.
Because the city, because that was the concern before, right? Was city resources after a period of time in the calendar year after 6 o'clock wouldn't be available or would likely
Well,
not be
that would not
available.
be available, but I think the thought was it would be more convenient for staff to do it close to 2 regular work hours.
Yep.
Particularly since one of our key resource people will be going on maternity leave here soon.
How dare you? Sorry.
What you can do from home.
For the hospital, what?
Just gonna keep her in the loop.
Are we looking at different days or only the same day earlier?
Same day, but
Same
Different
day,
times.
just a different time.
I could possibly try my best to make 5.
Okay, how does it work with everybody else? I wanna,
I could probably make it work. At the time, I will likely zoom in from the car. So, 'cause that's about what time I'm coming back.
At 5 o'clock, I can make work. 4 o'clock stuff.
oh, okay,
Yeah, 5 o'clock, I could make work. And keeping it on happens on the Wednesdays is fine.
How much earlier do we have to do it? I mean, can we make it 5:30? So. Right.
So-
It's really up to
virtually raising my hand. I'm kind of the one that unfortunately with Megan being out, I unfortunately cannot do past 5, which is totally fine if you guys can't do earlier than 5. I'll just have to probably just do minutes from the recording. It's totally not a big deal. I just unfortunately won't be available past 5.
And just for information, planning commission has the meetings, I think, start at 4. Mark, correct me if I'm wrong.
Arch and
Park
Arch too.
Park and Arts is 4. I think the library board is 2 o'clock. And city council is 6 o'clock, or 7 o'clock general, 6 o'clock for workshops.
And so I'll just add that it's the group's decision, it's the commission's decision. And I wouldn't let any potential conflict with resources sway your decision one way or the other. Whatever you decide needs to be in the best interest of the commission. Okay, with that said, I'm gonna suggest that we keep it at 6 o'clock, only because of the fact that if we do have it at 6 o'clock, we can get everyone in attendance.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like that 6 o'clock is a better time for everybody.
And I would,
But
with the weather getting, with the weather getting worse and everything, I think we should at least try to get the meetings, within an hour of the time, if we can, so we aren't out late at night, that type of thing, so. For me, it's no big deal, I live over here in the ghetto with somebody, but some of you live over in the river district, so, and that, you gotta go with freeway and everything, but it's a fall, so. Just thinking of safety for you, ladies.
So I think that sounds like the consensus is that we still keep it at 6 o'clock. But with the exception to that, let's try and we'll keep the meetings to an hour. And that may mean we need to table some items on the agenda to the next meeting so that people can have the time to get home safely, because we are coming into the winter months. It's going to be dark outside. And then to make that workable, is that acceptable?
Where it should be.
Then,
do we need a motion for this?
I think if you're not changing it.
I was saying, we're not changing anything, so we're just confirming that we're keeping it at 6 o'clock and with the limitations and, or just the, okay, just okay, 1 hour, right, so that everybody can feel safe on getting back home.
That would be trying to do it. I mean, if we're in the middle of something, obviously we're not.
Oh, we aren't gonna
It's
cut it
an
off.
hour
Yeah,
stop.
yeah, yeah.
No, what we do is on that.
Our goal.
Try and find decent benchmarks
Yes.
within our agenda. To say, okay, let's finish up this, and is this a good time that we can put and table this and continue it to the next agenda? Right. It's with the realistic benchmarks. Does that sound? Yes. Favorable?
Yep.
Okay. Perfect. So we're not changing anything, so that means we're just clarifying time and then also the meeting, how long the meeting, but continue. Okay, thank you, Mark, for attending our meeting.
Thank you.
Pleasure to have you here.
So are you turning the mic over to me?
I am totally turning the mic over to you and saying that Mark McAvoy is our new city administrator. And for Mark, we have 2 new members, Bill Norman and Jennifer Fonda. And I think,
I do.
and since the last time you were here, had sent in our new memberships. And so I'd like to continue with the City Academy. I think we have City Academy, City Podcast, and then City Engagement.
All right, so I'm gonna click start here on my 10-minute timer because I'm not going to take more than 10 minutes in total for these 3 items. The first 2, the Academy and the podcast, really, this is a call to action. These are some initiatives that the city has been considering and are in various stages of planning, but they're both related to citizen engagement in different ways. And so what we're
asking the commission to do is to consider going forward, how to help us develop the content and the intent of how we would use these to better community engagement across the board, right? So the City Academy is really just what I would call like a series of sessions where we would invite community members down to City Hall, library, somewhere, maybe even virtually. And each week we would have a session that had some topic related to how city government works. And so whether these were 6 sessions, 8 sessions, we'll figure that out later. But then individually, what session 1, 2, 3 ad infinitum, what the content of those each would be, is where we're asking the commission to kind of put some brain power behind and help us define as we go forward. Second item, city podcast. This is a thing that many municipalities and other types of organizations are doing. It's a fairly low barrier to entry, low cost kind of way to get a message out. This is on the informing side of engagement. But the possibilities of something like this are almost limitless. You could have all kinds of things going out in podcast format. And so this is another opportunity for the commission, I think, to help city staff understand what may be some topics we need to hit on based on your interaction with the community, some things we may not even be thinking of or that you want to prioritize. And so on both of these items, they're different things. They engage in different ways, but they're both related to engagement. And so we would ask you to help us kind of define content for each of those programs. Any questions about either or both of those before I move on to the third?
Would the podcast include like interviews with the mayor, interviews with chief of police, or
So I'm gonna
all
let,
that kind of?
I'm gonna answer quickly and then I'm gonna let David provide some context. I would
He's got
say,
a 10-minute time.
I would say, both and. I would say it could be anything we wanted it to be. And the beauty of it is each episode could be a completely different kind of thing, right? So,
As I've been kind of thinking about this, I can see this being, I've been listening to some other samples of other city podcasts. Most of them not great. I've heard ones where it just seems like the elected mayor got down at the table and decided out of an ego boost that he was going to host the show, despite what his level of vocal talent is.
Okay.
And engagement talent. I've heard some that are a little bit more lively, happy, interesting. So my concept would be something that would be both informative and entertaining. And it needs to be something where people want to listen to it, not just, oh, the city has a podcast. Oh, they're going to be interviewing the city staff. That's part of it, but there needs to be more to it. So I kind of mapped out topics and I came up, if we were to do this twice a month, I've got a whole year's worth of programming already put together, even without your involvement yet. I can see, I did have that on my list, interview the chief of police, interview the mayor, not during election year. So, anybody after election will be, I think, off the table until next November. Key city staff members, not just finding out what their job positions are, but finding out who they are as a person. What are they interested in? What are their hobbies? What's their personality like? Then also doing previews of community events. Winter Glow, talk to some people involved with that. Help to promote the event, but also let people know what goes on with creating this thing. Barefoot in the Park, the farmers market, et cetera, et cetera. The movies in the park, find out about the people who put those together and what their movies are coming up during the summer. I can also just see some occasional fun ones. A couple of concepts I have is let's talk to city staff members who are Star Wars fans. Okay, that would get people interested in who are the Star Wars fan listeners. Like, oh, I'm a Star Wars fan too. I want to listen to this podcast. So why don't we get them to listen to the staff members who are Star Wars fans? They also get to learn a little bit about what their jobs are. I would like to see some regular segments. I don't know what those are yet. I may be relying on you folks to figure out what could be some regular segments that are entertaining, like the things somebody listens for. Like the David Letterman top 10 lists. People waited for that, every show. Well, what is the top 10 that's coming up? What's it gonna say tonight? So something like that.
Citizen hero.
I'm open to
Once a
suggestions.
month, there's something to involve the city of the citizens.
Could be, yeah.
Who did something outstanding.
And I've done a little bit of research. This can be done fairly inexpensively, and this is one of those projects where even like the Citizens Academy, we reach out to you folks, and you may find out some of you have some expertise and talents on this. We had a meeting a couple of weeks ago with a couple of you, and found out, oh, Summer has been doing a podcast. So if any of you have any kind of background in this or things associated with that, we can rely on your experience to help get something like this off the ground. Did I over answer your question?
If we're still in those 10 minutes, I'd like to take a few seconds of that. And would we be open to considering putting those two things together, the pieces, shorts of the academy, et cetera, in the podcast?
I think
It's not, we don't already have some version of a task force associated with either. They can,
Yeah, I think any combination of possibilities is there. I mean, both of these things are their own thing, but they're flexible enough where you could cross mingle them with all kinds of possibilities.
awesome.
I want to nominate a topic, where the best place to make a left turn in town.
From your driveway.
There isn't.
Any other?
It seemed like a comment like that from a guest would be entertaining. Something saying there isn't.
Yeah.
That's part of why people will listen to it, not just for information, but to hear these occasional funny comments. Get to know the personalities of people who work here, who live here, make a contribution here.
What is the time schedule that I figured thinking like to start soon? That's what I was thinking.
We're actually broadcasting now. I mean,
You're right now in episode 4.
So we would propose, or have proposed that both of these would take effect when we get into the new budget year, because none of them, or neither of them currently have budget behind them. And so we would be targeting first of the year.
Okay.
I'm curious to know, because when Mark told me about the Citizens Academy, I wasn't familiar with it, so I'm just going to try to draw out, what questions do you have about that one?
What? It's very vague in your description, Mark. What exactly are we looking for? What compared to the two? I kind of think of the two kind of the same, and what distinguishes the academy from the pod?
So imagine just for a moment that we didn't mention the podcast. Okay, so if we're focusing on the academy, think of it as an opportunity for people to come together, 10, 12 people at a time, to learn about core pieces of city government. How does the city government work in its service of the community? And so you would immediately imagine a couple of high priority topics, like how is the budget put together and managed over the course of the year? You know, what's zoning all about? How does it work? It's really complex. It seems complex. Can we help break it down to make it simpler? You know, what does the police department do? I looked on our website. I don't see a link to a fire department who provides our fire service, those kind of things. And so, that could be many more. But these would be something where you would go through and you would have, you know, maybe start out small, one of these a year with 8 topics. I'm just spitballing. And you could see over time that the people that went through this would kind of be a source for potential board and commission membership, you know, kind of as a seed ground for that. You get your most interested people in there first, and then potentially council member, you know, you graduate maybe into a potential council member, but it starts somewhere. You get this group of people that have an interest in city government, but don't really know much about it and want to learn more. That's what that would be. Yeah.
Okay, so this is what we're gonna have to do between now and the first of the year, is to figure out how we're going to put this thing together. Okay? What people do we invite, or how do we get our group together, do we put a mass, something out on, the internet or whatever, on the web? Or to Facebook or something, asking people, to volunteer to be part of this program?
Is there an age group? I mean, like
Yeah.
your high school government students would be a great place to start.
Yeah, and that's where, kind of the overlap of this commission with some others becomes important. We've had some talk about restarting the youth commission, so if that happens, that would be a good fusion of those two commissions. But yes, absolutely. And so I think what I would ask you to consider is not only how to get a good cross-section of attendance,
Right,
but also what some of the topics may need to be to promote better engagement.
sure.
We mentioned a couple.
Yeah, I think the
What
topic
about-
would come very easily, like you said, police, fire, the city government, that type of thing. But,
Right.
because that's what we want to educate on. So, okay, thank you.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
So, as we develop this to help you, try to support to develop the program, then first, I guess, as I see it, when I understand, then we would try and provide like ideas for topics first. Is that what you're looking forward to?
Sure. I mean, obviously, we would want to get your insights into potential topics to really promote engagement. I think the most important piece of the academy, from my perspective, is getting your insight and input on how to ensure that we get a good cross-section when we're getting folks to attend the academy. If realizing we can't have an unlimited number, go through the program, I'll call it a program, the academy. How do we ensure that we're getting a good cross-section of the community each time? What channels we have to get the word out?
So it's more, who do we invite and how do we invite them?
Yeah.
That's what it,
Yeah, right, because it will have to be probably outside of, a typical meeting like this.
Okay.
We have to think, more out of the box.
well, we can always email ideas to one source, one person.
And I don't want you to spend brain power tonight going through the
Right.
possibilities, but just wanted to introduce the topic.
Right.
Have you understand what we're asking your involvement to be, so you can start thinking about it between now and, the end of the year, when we actually start having to spin wheels.
Yeah, that was what I was gonna ask. When is about those projects, would you consider like just so that we have an idea of let's call it a tentative launch date?
We really don't. I mean,
Okay.
obviously, we want to get started as early as we can in the new year because we're excited about these ideas. We
Yeah.
want to get some
Agreed.
kind of flesh on the bone, but I don't have a specific target date.
Okay,
I don't think we should put a target date on it, only because of the fact that don't want to be rushed going into this. We want to make sure that we cross our T's, dot our I's, because we want to make sure this is, put together very professionally. So I'd say, if we can kick it off in January, if not February, at the latest,
okay,
move forward.
sure.
But it does seem to me that both of them offer the opportunity for us to get our oar in the water and get this going, but to refine it
Yes.
as we go. So if we get high down because we're trying to make it perfect.
No, I didn't say
that's
that. I
probably-
didn't say make it perfect. I just make sure that we've got our ducks in a row, so we don't just throw it out there and just say, okay, this is good, We've got to make sure we got something planned out.
It needs some brainstorming. And that's what we
Absolutely.
need to do, like starting today,
Mhm.
tomorrow. And start throwing out those ideas, right, and build on them.
Absolutely.
Well, I wonder, oh, sorry.
Just, can we get a list of resources of people on staff who are available? For example, mayor, special, whatever, who are available and typically are people who like to talk to groups? People who might sign up for that, something like that, just so we start seeing what that is. I know that sounds like we could just look through a list of it, but like, I know that Mayor Chris would obviously be somebody who would be willing to talk to different levels of people, talk to, school age kids, talk to adults, talk to different groups. If we can maybe see or figure out between us start with who's available to do it. And then.
Are you talking about the 10 or 2%?
No, to present, so that we know who, what are we selling? What are we, besides the content, right?
So I wouldn't worry about that. And the reason I say that is because if you say, we believe this topic is important, the staff will figure out how to deliver.
So we're more concerned about people learning this skill or position or service than we are about getting to know the individual position. I just want to be clear on that. So it's not like find out what the mayor does. It's more about like, how does a budget work?
Well, that doesn't have to be one or the other.
Okay.
Right.
Really?
We're saying we're going to deliver an academy that's filled with information that lets people know what their local government does
Okay.
and how it does it.
Okay.
And so that can mean all kinds of things. And so if we have limited bandwidth, if we're gonna say limited to the 8 weeks,
Mhm.
right? How do we make those 8 weeks the most productive they can be?
But I could say that you would link, so if you pick a topic, budget, for example, and we do an academy piece on that, we'd link podcasts, probably a few to that would introduce people who are involved and, yeah.
Well,
So Jennifer also had something on.
yeah, well, I was gonna say, just like what Summer was saying, if we kind of interconnect these a little bit, it seems like there's a lot less moving parts in a podcast if we were to start that first, and then we'd be able to generate an idea of what people are interested in, because you can see how much feedback you get from the podcast, and then build the academy from there to delve more into what it is that people want to learn about and what they're passionate about the city and what they want to see there.
We could consider that.
And if we have a sort of, I'm just thinking, like, as far as if we were to start with a podcast and not be held to something, like a Sesame Street, sort of, method, for things might not be a bad idea, because at that point you can introduce different segments, different types of stuff, and then that can navigate, tell us where we're going. But if we just pick one idea for that, we might have to change courses midstream, and that might not be the greatest plan. So that's, I don't know, that's my thought.
Because I was concerned you're gonna have us do a letter in the episode.
I might. G is for game.
How to make a song for that.
So in the spirit of the earlier conversation, I will volunteer to table that my third item, because it's not that important. And you guys can move down the agenda.
Okay, but I do want to hear, Darren, do you have any thoughts on that? Because on either the city academy or the podcast?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think go towards, the comments that both Summer and Jennifer made about, kind of starting that podcast stream and then getting feedback from the community as far as, trying to gauge their interest before trying to develop a robust program of some kind that may not necessarily be what community members might be interested in, at least initially. Trying to find those, couple of key topics from an academy standpoint that are going to be the most engaging to bring people in. And then once you've got them in, then you can slowly layer in those other pieces that may not necessarily be the most exciting from initial face value, as far as what that topic might be. Like the budget may not be the most exciting thing to necessarily lead with, but it's an important piece to understand and understanding the workings of it. So maybe that's the second or third layer as it kind of comes in. So I like the podcast idea to kind of start with. Is kind of just my initial thoughts.
I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think we're missing what he's asking for. These are two separate items for the academy, he's asking us, how do we present it to the citizens? How do we get people to come to it? And who do we get to come to? And I think that's one topic that you're asking. Right?
Yes, I'm asking for your help to get
Figure
a
out
good
who and how.
cross-section of attendance, target audience
Right.
for the academy. Yes.
And then for the podcast, which is different, you're asking our help in topics and how to get it out there.
Well, not how to get it out there necessarily, but
Okay,
just input on maybe some interesting topics
okay,
that we could include in the lineup of topics. And not to, I don't want to minimize any of the feedback. It's all valuable. We'll use it all. Because these two things potentially could have a lot of overlap. I can see that, for sure. But I think you've summarized it very well. That's right now what we're asking you all to put some brain power behind.
I guess on both of those, it's, what do you as residents around these tables find interest in wanting to know about? Now, myself as an employee, I can come up with a list, but I don't come from the context of being a resident and didn't see that. You have that perspective, and you have that extra value that reaches the audience that I'm not able to do personally.
I guess that's why I was considering the resource element, because for me, if I'm gonna take a college class or do something, I'm the person who likes to look through and say, hey, I've never even heard of that. That one sounds fun. And so for me, I was thinking, if I'm going to sell this, if I'm going to present this to others, I'd like to know what the options are. And if it's, hey, it could be anything, what's interesting to you, I'm gonna have to think a little bit differently about that. But if we already have some version of, these are some of the choices, or these are some of the thoughts, to me, that's a little bit easier.
We can certainly provide you with.
Because it's just hard to say who I would give that to. Different people are gonna be interested in the budget versus, what events are upcoming, that kind of thing. So I guess that's where I was that's why I was focusing on that, to get that, because to me, to sell something, I have to know what it is I'm selling, but people reverse engineer that one all the time, so.
So my thought would be, and probably look at it today too, is it worthwhile to start just a general, like a brainstorming list? And, we can, I think it helps that if, once you get the list started and then we distribute that list, then the people start coming up with some ideas to generate some thoughts. That might be helpful? Okay. And so David, I'd be happy to help you with that, or if you'd like to generate that list, then that'd be fine, but
Yeah, really, what we're doing here is we're just kicking off an idea with you folks. And then from tonight, moving forward in days and weeks, months to come, we're looking for you folks to help us on the idea generation. And perhaps this is something that could be looked at during upcoming months of meetings. Saying, okay, here's where we are now. Here's what everybody else suggested. And then maybe, like you said, somebody may have suggested something that generates a thought from somebody else. We just build a list.
But maybe we could also work just, as we're doing that, just, even though we don't have the launch date or anything, just a general timeline, just of an approximation of, here's what we'll do on this session, here's what we'll do over here. That might just help guide, and that's of course gonna probably evolve and fluctuate, but it would try and keep us within that, just that, our general goals. I'm so goal oriented, I'm so sorry. I'm just really that way, that because otherwise, if we don't have that, sometimes we never get to where we want to go to. That makes sense?
And I think it's helpful to always remember in this case, on these two items that we've asked you to brainstorm on, we're in the context of promoting better engagement. That's what we're trying to achieve, and that's what we want you all to think about in that context.
So between now and the next meeting, if we have ideas, what do we do with them? Do we email them? Do we send them to
One thing we want to avoid with this and other projects is we don't want to have you communicating with each other just because of those of you who took the open public meetings
Right.
training.
Yeah.
We don't want to have these,
Potential.
Walking quorums.
or rotating meetings. So just facilitate my way, and when we have a meeting, I'll just share what's been collected.
Okay.
I cannot be in quorum myself that way.
And then,
No violation occurred.
so I think that's a great idea, of people then we can generate something, by David, and then at the same time, maybe try and just the general timeline of from here to the first of the year. How about that? And we can expect it to change, you know, but it might help to give us some type of a format and help us to guide and direct us. That sound reasonable?
That's only 2 more meetings.
Yes, I know. So maybe
Short 1 hour meetings.
Yes.
we'll,
Can't believe it's already almost the first of the year.
And don't put that much pressure on yourself, right? Because we're not looking for full final, drive out, production ready
Right.
stuff. We're looking for brainstorming.
okay, and I'll be talking to you some more, David, to do that, so that we can sort of look at that and combine and have a pathway going forward. Is that fair for everybody?
This could be something where any of you on either of these 2 topics just suddenly have something that pops in your mind. Boom, send me an email. Don't think, okay, I need to wait to send something just before the next meeting. I was in collaboration with a former coworker of mine on another podcast. And occasionally when I came up with an idea for a topic, I would email him that night, and we would add that one to the list.
Okay, is that fun? Right, okay. So the next on the list is Summer and Aaron. What we'd like is just it's a progress update that probably provides high level overview on CDC role, because we got a copy of that, but I'll be honest, I didn't get a chance to review it in any depth. So if there's any chance, could you provide that high level overview?
Sure.
I know you said something about you did it in 15 minutes. I'm really impressed.
Well, Summer and I were very focused, and had lots of caffeine, so it worked out great well. So what we did, Summer and I sat down, we took the document that Robin created, and then, Bill's comments, and kind of looked at it through kind of that lens that we had kind of talked about of trying to go, what makes sense from a public facing standpoint, trying to simplify it as much as possible. And so a lot of what we ended up taking out when we were kind of walking through this was more, I'll say more of the operational processes from a commission standpoint that didn't necessarily pertain specifically to the goal or objective itself. Meaning this is our goal. We know there's going to be stuff behind it that we're doing, but we don't need to spell out some of those things as we're describing what the actual goal or objective is. So we tried to really streamline it and focus it on that piece of it. The top portion of it of the document itself, and the first italicized, sentence of text is, was that kind of one-liner that we worked on crafting. We modified it a little bit based on just trying to, wordsmith it so it made the most sense, but it's, Community Engagement Commission's role is to gather ideas, input, and feedback from community members to advise and guide city leadership. It's kind of our, one-liner. That's what we're there to do, so if you take our ordinance, and kind of boil it down to brass tacks, that's about what it comes out to. Obviously, this is still a drafting process, but that's kind of where we ended up when we were looking at it. And then as we look at below that line, then it got into kind of our, our core goals of, what were those key pieces that we really wanted to take away from. So, the research and studies piece, as we look at, outreach opportunities and those types of things, was kind of that first, big bullet. The second one was focused on collaborating, designing and implementing those processes for projects. And then as we get into, analyzing results and making recommendations, community outreach and networking, and then providing a written report, kind of those were kind of those 5 key things that when we took all that information, we really tried to condense it down to, something very simplified, but also kind of hit the key points that were kind of there. The ordinance piece, we dropped at the bottom of it, with, in italics as well. So it's kind of, Summer and I were kind of looking at the formatting. She was like, this is a great place to put it. So we dropped that down to the bottom. So we've got a simple, really a simple 3/4 page boilerplate that is easy to read for the most part. I think it's still, you can always work with things to death. But I think it's, I think Summer and I think we did a, good job getting it simplified to the point. And if someone wants to keep reading, they can. Like, if they want to know what we are, here's the one-liner. If they want to hear more about our goals and objectives, they can read down below. But they don't, but at least gives them some context. And then the second page, we took Bill's piece.
Pretty much have this.
Yeah, I think we maybe changed one word. I don't even
Try to
know.
find it. Try to find it, no.
But we kind of took the same, kind of that same, kind of like that friendly narrative, so if you were to put something on the website and saying, okay, well, hey, this is what we are, kind of a little bit more, a little softer than kind of more of the goals and objectives that may be a little bit more hard and fast. This is something that's, from, Bill's words, he created that we felt like would be a good kind of secondary piece that we could potentially incorporate and use in other ways. In a way to utilize some of that really good language that Bill kind of crafted. So that's what we ended up doing. So it's really, when we boiled it down, it's like that one page. Here's our goals and objectives. Here's what we're going to try and do. Here's where, what we're set out to do. And then something a little bit more friendly about us, as a commission trying to work with the city and the community members, all the other things that we're trying to touch on that could be a little bit more friendly, as we're trying to talk through it. So that was a blast. I mean, we had fun.
We'll do it again, all right, but not this one.
Not this one.
No, and to be clear, we pretty much took what we had, which everyone was familiar enough with, and took out redundancies and didn't really reorder much or do much. So it wasn't a lot of new material. If anything, it was a word choice and condensing some things. Bills, like I said, we left as is, and then just the formatting and being able to use this in more in-depth place and the other one in more forward-facing stuff. That really.
Yeah, the redundancies were a big thing.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, is gonna happen when you're kind of building out a document and just trying to put everything down on paper. You're gonna have things that are in different places, and so we tried to really focus on streamlining that as much as possible in that kind of front top section, so.
I think you guys did a great job.
There too. Thanks.
Well,
It was fun.
I haven't exactly read through it.
Yeah.
I was like preparing for this meeting, so I have to admit, I'll have to go through it and
It's just a frame around what you did. Like a frame putting up on the wall.
I'll make some of my modifications and bring it back. So here's the homework for this, is that I don't know if everybody has had a chance to thoroughly, I know that we probably need to just browse through it, but really had a chance to go through it, looking at what was done before from the first draft, looking at what the mission statement and the outline over here. So if the CEC could look to have comments into David because of the Open Public Meeting Act, comments into David, would it be realistic to have them to him by 11/9? That would give approximately 3 weeks.
Sure.
Okay. And then it goes to David. David will distribute them to us in a timely manner, and he always does. Okay, so that was that's the homework for that time. That would be- Any other questions of Summer and Aaron? Thank you very much, and thanks for that. I think it's 15 minutes you guys. You know, Mark, I think we do have time, just looking at the time for the density engagement resources, and let's talk about that.
So this one will take less time than the others. This is just really an update to say that there is an opportunity to examine kind of what I would call an alternative to some of the things that you've seen that's focused more on engagement and less on survey making. And so I think it's important to see that. Don't necessarily want to derail any conversations that you're having. Certainly don't want to derail any conversation, but don't want to delay them either. So just wanted to put this option out there, find out if that's something that you may want to explore, and then we can come back and figure out how to do that later.
Okay, so
And I realize you don't have much information about it, but it's similar to what you've seen. It's just focused on engagement, pure engagement versus just survey making. So if you're interested in learning more about it, we could certainly do something similar to what we had done in the past with other potential vendors. Or we could do something different. It really is up to you. And by that, I mean, schedule a demo if you're interested.
okay. Open up to the rest of the commission.
Is this something you've used and want to say anything personally about it?
I've not personally used it. I'm familiar with it, but I've not been a client or a user in the past.
I mean, I'll just throw it out there. I think that, based on where we're at with other possible vendors, I would say I'd be open to seeing another demo of something that, especially if it's focused primarily on the engagement side of things, I think it'd be, worth our commission's time to either do something, whether it's in a workshop setting that's outside of the general, the broader meeting, or whether it's individually or whatever the case might be, that's going to work to, get the information in front of all the commissioners. But I would highly recommend you at least look at it, because right now we've only had a couple of options that have seemed viable. So it doesn't make sense not to at least dig into it further.
Help me understand what you mean when you say it's more about engagement and less about services.
So, so what I would say to qualify that is that their strategy and their platform is focused on promoting engagement at all levels. So it does have the capability to put questions out to take feedback, but it also has more capabilities that are centered on collecting information, connecting people together that may not know they want or need to be connected. And so it's more a tool to promote engagement that does have the capability to, put out calls for information, collect and report on that information, got analytics and all of that with it. But it also has just native to the platform, a focus on building engagement versus simply being a tool that's focused on analytics.
So like creating groups to discuss or to talk about something, or I hesitate to say chat room.
Yeah, I wouldn't describe it as a chat room, but certainly the connectability that you're describing is a feature that they would be able to provide, yes. And I'm probably not doing it justice.
I was hoping you had something great to say, so we had a third good option. That's cool. Thank you all.
So I think the group is in agreement that a demo would be that this would be favorable for us to look at.
And for those of us who didn't click on the link, did that link take us to something similar to a demo?
I
It's
don't
just,
know.
it's just their website.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
The
mean,
introduction to it. I think Mark had indicated to me. The information there maybe doesn't really tell the full story
Okay.
of what the service is.
I mean, feel free to tool around. My opinion, their website doesn't provide a lot of content, and so hence the,
So can we get started on some sort of demo
yeah.
situation?
Yeah, so to Aaron's point, you know, whether these guys aren't local, so they're going to be virtual anyway, so it may be that you want to consider scheduling a special meeting virtually that is only that, so you can just maybe have a half-hour demo and that's all you do for that session.
And I think when you say virtual, you may need everybody at their homes, right?
Yes,
Yeah, if we could do some combination of that or that and recorded, would be super helpful.
So, David, you'll be able to set that
Yeah.
up for us and provide us the information and that'd be good. And then, so I think that that's a great idea too, is that, let's look at a special meeting for a half hour. So that we can just focus on that. Is that agreeable to everybody?
But not at 4 o'clock.
Well, it could potentially be like a recorded Zoom or something, right, too, that we didn't have, I'm saying that we didn't have to be present for a special meeting, we could just get, you know.
You know, we could open that up to, offering it live, so those of you who may want to ask questions.
Sure, of course.
And then we could also offer the recording to those who just choose not to be there live, at least you can see, the you know, the core bits of information that was provided.
so let me interject just to make sure that we stay on the same page. If we're gonna have if you're gonna have a special called meeting, and you call a meeting, you have to have a quorum to have the meeting. So if you're going to have a called meeting, you need to make sure that you've got enough people that attend live to have a quorum. If you just want a recorded demo, we can do that, but that would be outside of the called meeting arena.
That's true, and then we have to do special notice with the. So would it just be best just to do the demo, because everybody can think about that?
Sounds good.
Okay,
You're talking about a group demo or
Recorded
recorded?
so recording.
or presented demo.
No, presented, not recorded, presented. Yeah.
So you would be calling a meeting to have the demo. It would just be a virtual meeting.
Okay. Everybody's good with the virtual meeting? Okay,
Which can be also recorded.
Sure, got it.
Yeah.
Since we're worried about reaching a quorum, is it possible to get some potential dates and times from them first to see when they could hold a live demo, to see if this is?
yeah, that's what we're looking.
They will meet any schedule that we give them. So
okay.
it's more contingent on you all's convenience and when you want to call.
Okay,
Yeah, Jennifer, before you joined, we had a few demos during the meetings
I
here.
saw one of them, yeah.
And we had
God bless you.
we had some from the East Coast. I mean, they were 3 hours off from us,
Yeah.
9 to night. So they will accommodate your needs.
How does November 2nd at 6 o'clock sound? That's a Wednesday. I just picked a day at a time.
I can do the following Wednesday. I'm traveling that week.
So the following Wednesday is planning commission.
Yeah.
Does that impact anybody here?
Hmm.
Would that impact anybody here though? Oh,
Well, it'll be here, so it may run past
oh,
that.
if you have to do it in person.
Well, it doesn't have to be on Wednesday, it can be on Thursday. Yeah. Just trying to pick a day here for us.
Did you say we can Zoom from home and have to do it, but we just all have to be live, right? Not in person, live.
Yeah, and just to clarify, if you call a meeting, you have to have, and it's a virtual meeting, you have to have a quorum attending The version.
Right,
Right,
Yeah.
right, but we're saying then the planning commission wouldn't necessarily apply if we want you in these states.
Potentially correct unless we had resources that we're trying to manage both meetings.
Yeah.
But timeline.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with that Thursday. If we get one of those that Thursday back to March.
Thursday would be better for me as well.
Thursday the 10th.
And just to let everybody know, I don't know if it's matters to anybody, it doesn't. But that's the day before a 3-day weekend. Just something, you know, Veterans Day.
So. He's
Just in
ready
case
to
anybody
break.
travels or kids.
Every day is a Saturday.
The November 10th is workable for me.
Well, we have a quorum then.
Yeah, I'm going.
Okay.
November 10th.
Do we need a motion for?
I think that we need a motion for
Okay,
us.
so I will make a motion that we schedule a special meeting to do a demo at Sound City on Thursday, November 10th. 6 p.m. For everybody?
Yep.
At 6 p.m.
A second motion. Okay, and all those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries. November 10th.
It will be by Zoom. Either, well, they will be presented by Zoom. You can attend by Zoom. That's all.
You attend live or by Zoom, right?
Oh, okay.
Okay. Next item on general business is the wrap up of the 2022 farmers market engagement. Anybody have any comments? I have just one comment that I think is significant, and it would help looking forward on our farmers market if there's any possibility of relocating our station. And primarily it's so close to the music. And then people would talk and you would be talking about them. They would be trying to talk about you. And so I think it would make a better situation.
Can we get our own station?
I don't know. I guess that's to be determined by David or Mark.
I mean, city council always had other people in there and said, we don't need you, we have too many people. Do we want that to happen again?
Meaning a station for the commission as in addition. to-
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I think it's possible, sure, we can ask all those questions. I don't think-
So why don't we just look at, continued discussion? And then on that, we continued discussion, we can put it also to November's agenda. But at least that's the one thing that, for me, that's the significant thing that would make potentially a better atmosphere to do community engagement and talking and engaging with the public. But I don't know what anybody else thought.
I would agree. I think the placement of the city booth in general, in proximity to where the music was, depending on who the musician was problematic at times to be able to have, quality conversations. It didn't prohibit it, but it definitely made it challenging at times. So I think just the location for the city booth in general, regardless of our commission, I think as the city's trying to plan the summer layout for farmers market would be something to, kind of look at so that, council members in there have an opportunity to actually have a really good in-depth conversation with people that are coming up to them and not having to, try and talk over the music that's taking place in the pavilion area. Overall, I think it was really positive. I think the piece, I think I brought it up before, as we look at 2023 for the farmers market and our commission, one of the pieces I would recommend, and whether it's as part of a workshop session or some way putting it together, which is actually strategically planning what it is that we're going to be doing as part of the farmers market, so that we're not at each of our meetings trying to figure out what are the questions we're going to ask, that we have a really good robust plan for the questions we're asking, how we're asking those questions, how we're gathering the information, how we're reporting that information back to the city and everybody else, So, that would be the one piece that I would say as we plan out 23 is making sure we have a robust understanding of what that's gonna look like. For the farmers markets, because I don't know that we need to be there every weekend. You know, back to Terry's comment about the city council or mayor saying, hey, we're good, we've got a lot of people. I don't know that we need to be there every weekend as a commission. Do we need to be there often? I would say yes. But I think we need to be strategic about when we're there and what topics we're actually asking the city about.
That's great comment. And I'd like to continue that since we can, really, because farmers market doesn't start yet until next year. And just continue the conversation on how we can make that farmers market better for community engagement and also how we can, well, we can incorporate this in the work plan 2023 initiative. That sound together? Thank you. Moving on, other upcoming opportunities. Okay, moving on.
Well, actually, I'll share this, I'll send this out to you. I was involved in a 1 hour webinar this morning on community engagement from a city perspective. They will have a recording of that available. It's just 1 hour. I will forward it on to you. I think I took about a page of notes. Could be informative, could be idea generating for some of you. It involves somebody from one of the cities from the west side of the state, I forget which one, but it is, a regional presentation from the MRSC, which stands for
I don't remember.
Municipal,
Municipal research, something.
yeah. So yeah, I'll be sending it out to everybody for your own choice to view it if you choose to, if you have time.
That'd be interesting to see. Sure.
Yeah. Thank you. Request for agenda items for November meeting. I have a request to add minutes beyond the ones that we talked about, continuing to take a look at farmer market engagements, but let's add the CEC bylaws. And a portion of that homework would be to read the CEC ordinance and also to read the planning commission bylaws. And that I think will help provide some background and start our discussions on that. It's a part of the ordinance. It's a part of the ordinance that the community engagement commission needs to do.
I can send a link to those to everybody just to make sure you know easily where to find those.
So we have a couple of homework assignments for next time that CEC bylaws to read the ordinance, read the planning commission, and another one is to give David any thoughts on the two new between the city academy, city podcast. Also for another homework is to look at the by 11/9 to have your comments into David on the CEC roles and responsibilities. And have I missed anything? That's a lot of homework. I know. Okay.
Just for the next meeting, I'd like to throw out, if we can start maybe thinking about ways to make our group recognizable or approachable at things that we're not possibly standing at physically. If we can maybe think on whatever that is. We do a lot of receiving information when we're somewhere in person. We're starting to get into giving out information, but maybe there's some thoughts there.
That generates a bit of curiosity I had. Robin, you had an email, maybe it was yesterday. Somebody was asking you kind of a general question, which you forwarded to me. I don't think that's happened with anybody before. It's somebody probably was contacted you through the website. You remember the question? You
It
remember?
was about leaf,
Yeah.
picking up of leaves. It was probably somebody I maybe potentially met at the farmer's market. I talked to quite a few people on it.
So I found it interesting that somebody was reaching out to one of you for a
That's
general question.
Business cards. They hand out.
Okay,
Sure.
Is that on the list?
I think she's speaking on, you know, on the my mentioning the recognizable and approachable. Just something. Because we shouldn't be not engaging when we don't have a specific event or something, I think.
Could we create virtual ones that we could just share from our phones and we're not printing paper and carrying it around?
Yeah, and we could do a campaign of some sort as well, a virtual campaign of some sort as well, right? That would include that. I just want to make sure that we're not stopping any engagement just because there isn't an event.
I think that does lead to questions though that we. And I think we want to talk about more relative to how we can establish a presence on the city website also.
But wasn't that gonna be on this, we're talking about changes to the website, is that something that's still on our
so
agenda?
I think that on what we're actually, or discussing now, maybe we could. I think we got putting on the November agenda, correct? Yeah, why don't we just have that a topic specific to the November agenda? I think that's a good one, so, and,
How many phrasing the topic?
well, Summer said she'd like to make the group somehow more recognizable just beyond events. And let's brainstorm that. Let's put it on the November agenda. That sound reasonable? Okay. Anything else? Is there anything else for the good of the order of the meeting tonight? Excellent. Okay, so the next meeting is November 16th, 2022 at 6 o'clock p.m. Motion,
I have a motion to adjourn.
second, anybody?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.